Joining us now on the Newsmaker Hotline is Dan Bongino. Of course, Dan Bongino is a former Secret Service agent, and we've been tapping into his knowledge in the last few days. Dan, how are you?
Hey, Brian, Larry, how are you?
Well, as you've heard us lay out the story as we know it, in a very fluid situation, a very tense situation, what are the conclusions you draw from what you hear?
Yeah, I've been stunned. I spent a lot of time in Russia on some of my criminal investigations when I was an agent, and this is unusual. If it is, in fact, Chechens, which we're speculating because we don't know if they're Turkish or Chechen, it is a dangerous turn. You know, Chechen separatists in that region have always attacked, the Russians which have autonomy over the area. They've never seen us as really a geopolitical foe. They've actually seen us as kind of you're familiar with the enemy, and my enemy is my friend. They've always seen us in that respect. So when attacked by Chechens, if that is the case, again, we're speculating, it would be a very dangerous turn of events, and it would show that the radicalization of some of the folks in that area is now complete.
Let me give you the best information we have on that. And again, this is fluid, and this may need to be refined as we go forward. But it appears that one may have been born in Kyrgyzstan, one was born in Russia. The two brothers lived for a while in Chechnya, and then they apparently spent some time in Turkey, and then came to this country legally at least a year ago, and have been living in the Cambridge area in an apartment together. Now, that's the best information we have. It may get refined slightly as we go forward, but that is at least the initial indication.
Yeah, Al-Qaeda's always seen that area, Brian, as a strategic choke point. That area in North Ossetia, the Caucasus region, Azerbaijan, that area around the Caspian Sea, because they want to own that belt and would really put pressure on the Russians. You know, they don't see the Russians as being Al-Qaeda, that is, any different from us. But what I found out about this is the Chechens are really it's not a secular movement, obviously, but they're interested more in just an autonomous control of their area. They've never seen a larger global cause as Al-Qaeda does. Al-Qaeda's kind of looked to co-opt the movement. So I was kind of surprised when I woke up this morning that was the national origin, supposedly, of these two guys.
Well, Dan Bongino, I mean, just because they're from Chechnya might not be the purpose behind it. Of course, unfortunately, we are in the business of speculating now, and we hate to do that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that their cause in this terrorist attack was the Chechnyan cause. It just may be a coincidence. The question that I have, though, is if it is linked to the Chechnyan cause, and based on your experience and knowing the situation in Chechnya, what's their beef with the United States? Why would they attack us when their beef is with Russia?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that. Again, we are speculating. That's what's got me oddly baffled. I mean, they've always seen us in that enemy, and my enemy is my friend. And
all right.
Al-Qaeda's seen them as a strategic location where they can use them to further their cause, but not necessarily the other way around. The Chechens have not viewed Al-Qaeda that way.
Right. Well, let's leave that thread for a moment. Let me ask you about the fact that these guys apparently had some kind of military-grade grenades with them. How difficult is it to obtain that kind of stuff?
Well, that's a key question. That says to me that there was some support from an organized cell. You can't just, that's not the kind of thing, as you well know, Brian, you can't just go to eBay and buy military-grade explosives. But it brings up another question, and again, these questions just pop up as we're talking. If they had access to military-grade explosives, why did they use smokeless powder in the initial bomb? Now, I'm glad they did. That is a lower yield than a military-grade explosive, but the potential to impose more tragedy and harm is there with the military grade. So there's just so many open questions, and that says to me that there had to be some kind of cell support. These guys apparently were young, early 20s. To be able to access that kind of sophisticated military equipment is not something you could buy on Amazon.
As this situation develops, and I know that you're probably watching it on the news as well, drawing on your experience from the Secret Service, what kind of precautions have to be taken? I mean, they have to do a manhunt, but they also have to protect the citizens. This is a very, very tough thing for them. What kind of tactics do they use?
Well, the only way to do this is to look big first and shrink it in. I guess what I'm saying is, imagine Manhattan, if you were doing a grid search in Manhattan. you have to start big first. How do you get out of Manhattan? Brooklyn Bridge, Williamsburg Bridge, we get it. Shut all those down. Then you start shrinking in more and more and more. And what you do is you close off any potential avenue to escape. Subways, the T in Boston, obviously any airports. And I don't know if they've narrowed even the locations down at this point, but it helps to have no one on the street at that point too, because you can do literally house.
Right.
And Dan, again, your role as a Secret Service agent was to protect the president and his family. When you're looking at a potential perpetrator or potential suspect, I'm guessing, and you can affirm it or tell me otherwise, this kind of suspect that we're dealing with here, is this really the most dangerous kind of individual you ever had to contemplate dealing with?
Absolutely, Larry. Someone like this who worships death more than we fear losing our own life. They're not going to go alive. As you saw by their throwing grenades and looking to get away at any cost. They're not going in alive. They're gonna take out whoever they can at this point. And it's extremely, extremely dangerous. I can't emphasize that enough.
All right, Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent. We greatly appreciate you joining us here on WMAL for our special coverage.